ImaginAction podcast.
ImaginAction.
Creando comunità trasformative per il
ImaginAction
futuro.
podcast.
Social arts across borders. לבנות קהילות
Crediamo che
טרנספורמטיביות לעתיד.
l'immaginazione.
Building transformative communities for future.
Nosotros creemos que la imaginación.
Hello, welcome to ImaginAction podcast. In this episode, I'm speaking with David Diamond about his journey to discover and found theater for living. Enjoy. I was talking some time ago, before this whole COVID, with one of the people I'm collaborating with a social innovation project. It's hell, but you have to do it. No, but I was trying to explain what I do and what's my vision, and I said that I'm trying to build bridges in a world made of islands. And I, by the way, that was also one of the names for the PPLG where we met, was also building bridges, and I really feel that this is part of the deep sense of the reason of this work. And I also hear all the frustrations, how do we explain the work to funders? How do we explain the logic, which is different than everything else that is around almost, and then how do we not become a mirroring of what we're trying to change? That's the depth of the somehow this polarization or this kind of disconnection that is happening.
Yeah, and there are big questions building in me. I'm in Canada, in Vancouver. Of course, when we're watching what's happening in the United States, what happens there affects us fast. There's an old saying that the United States sneezes and Canada catches a cold. But a few days ago, here in Vancouver, we had a 1,000 person anti-mask demonstration. And I was talking with a friend about this last night, and I don't know what to do with that. Like, I am this guy who wants to create dialogue, but I don't understand it. And all I can imagine doing is like screaming and going, how stupid are you? And I'm embarrassed by that because I don't have an answer. I don't know what's happened. And it's become so political. There's nothing political about it. And it's become really political. And, I've said over and over again, the best forum theater is theater about things we actually don't have answers to. And so somehow this would make a great forum theater play, but I have given up my company. And nobody seems to be inviting me to do it right now. But, it's, when we talk about frustration, I don't know if the word is frustration, but there's deep concern right now.
Well, maybe someone listening to this podcast will say, well, I want to do this play, and we'll call you.
Yeah, maybe.
I know you have had your challenges with this whole Zoom transformation situation. And I agree. It's even hard to even imagine how to do this work. And it's a whole other interview we can do as well. But I do feel that there are some opportunities here to at least exchange knowledge and wisdom and learn from each other.
Absolutely that. I'm in some kind of Zoom conversation every day now. And have, facilitated meetings, 60-person meetings now in Zoom. I'm using it a lot. But I also, know that, right now it's just you and me, and part of us might believe that we're looking each other in the eye, but we're not.
We're looking at each other's eyes.
But there's also that, we're looking at pixels. I'm not looking at flesh and blood. We're looking at pixels. And it's a miracle that we can do that. It's a wonderful magic miracle, but we're not looking each other in the eye.
So I want to bring us to the next question, which is going from the challenges and the frustration into the gifts, the treasures, the discoveries, what you're taking home, the things you have found on this path. And I can see the beautiful artwork in the back, but
and they're gifts, actually. There are many of them around here. Lots of gifts. And yeah, well, lots and lots of many kinds of gifts. It's been a very privileged place with the company, the ability to have really wacky ideas and do them, and actually do them, and have large groups of people come together to make them real was a huge gift. I'm not, I've done a lot of traveling for work, and I'm not a good tourist. I've never been a good tourist. But I've had the privilege of being invited really deep into community and have seen people and heard people who've been very, very generous with me as we've created things together. And my understanding of so many things has been broadened. It's a constant education. Part of that, if I can just take a little detour, part of that is realizing many years ago now that my job wasn't to come in understanding maybe anything. My job was to come in with a skill set that was adaptable and co-create with these people who were the experts in the subject matter. I know this sounds maybe weird, counterintuitive for people, but I didn't have to research the subject matter. I let go of doing that because the people in the room contain the subject matter. And the more I come in with preconceptions about what that might be, the more I disrespect them. And I think part of the wonderful chemistry that happens is they figure that out. They figure out that this person isn't trying to impose their own perceptions of the issue on them, that we really are co-creating, and things light on fire, because I think people don't get a chance to do that often. And that's a gift. That kind of trust is a gift, yes, so many gifts. And I guess I'll just say this again, the broadening and the depth of seeing the world in all of its complexity. Understanding that in some ways, all of us are oppressed oppressors. That everybody has complexity. And letting go of kind of a more us and them kind of image that I had when I was a lot younger. That was, convenient, because it made things easier. It felt like it made things easier to understand. It certainly made my political organizing simpler, you know. But speaking very personally, it was uninformed and it was lazy.
So I very resonate with this journey. And I wrote, before I wrote about them, it was about them, and now I wrote us, it's about us. and it's, you know, this kind of seeing the world, and then through that seeing community, meeting community, the experts in that, you know, finding something that meets, you know, challenges and changes you as well. And this is, let's say, the last question from this series of questions, which is really about the path, is, you know, now from where you're sitting, if you would have a chance to talk with your younger self, or with a younger self that is just starting now, what would be your advice to someone just starting this path?
Don't try to rush. You know, it's funny, I repeat this two sentences over and over again in many ways because it had a really profound effect on me, but I think it is the answer. It is my answer to the question you're asking. And it comes out of Freire and the pedagogy of hope. We can't get there from there. We can only get there from here. And so the advice is to be where you are. Not in a way that is inert. You know, one needs forward momentum, but to embrace where you are and work from there, not from where you wish you were. Because you aren't where you wish you were. You're where you are. You know, I years ago did a project called Reclaiming Hope from a Culture of Fear. And I did some of those when I was in Europe last summer before we did the PPLG. And in preparation for that, I did some research on hope and was surprised. I'd always thought hope was an emotion. Hope is a verb. And in order to hope, this is now people who study brains and thoughts and stuff, comes out of their work. In order to hope, there's a few things that have to happen. We have to recognize where we are. And we have to be able to imagine some better place. And we have to be able to imagine some kind of steps to that better place. Or hoping doesn't actually occur. And so hope is an intransitive verb. To hope means to see a horizon, a better horizon. It's really interesting. It's not just an emotion. Hope is essential to doing this work. Otherwise, what are we doing? Because at one point, you know, I got tired of making projects that were fighting against the world I didn't want. And I made a very conscious decision to adapt the work, to try to work towards the world I do want. And the way I talk about the work in creation processes, and the way I work with groups, and actually explain this, so that we're creating something that is trying to work towards the world we want, not just fight against the world we don't.
So this is a great build-up and I'm going to bunch 3 of the next questions into one, and I'm going to ask you. And I had a difficulty to find the phrasing here. Hector suggested your wildest dream. What is your wildest dream? But
I invented an exercise that I call your wildest
yeah,
dream.
yes, I know, but I want to also connect it with this hope. And there is a book by John Amacy, Active Hope, because next week I'm interviewing good friend Ron Bonzo, and we had a discussion about hope, as maybe hope is not necessarily a good thing. You know about the myth of Pandora box. So the Pandora box, like all the bad things of the world were there.
Yep.
She kind of opened it up. She was tricked into opening it up. But anyway, what was left in the end was hope. And Ron and I, we were talking, and he was saying, well, why is it in the box anyway? Why is that in that box? And the argument was that hope is somewhere in the future, and it kind of can avoid us from being now, so that we hope for. But and I feel, what you were talking about, be here and hope, this active hope, and instead of a kind of a, let's hope it will be better, and active hope.
Yes. That if I can just say, hope isn't sitting on your sofa wishing things were better. Hope is actually moving towards. It's active. It's not inert.
So what are you hoping for now? What is this? What are you busy with? What do you right now feel that you're creating at this time?
Well, it's a very challenging time right now. For people who might see this in the far distant future, we're in the second wave of COVID-19 right now. I can't work. There were projects planned for this year and they can't happen. I'm talking with people in Australia and Switzerland, in southern Alberta, and in Vancouver about projects we hope in 2022. And so it's a very particular time right now. Part of my hope, I hope this is going to be okay, is that little creature. Can you see a little black creature there? Yes, her name is Ramona. And today is day 6 of us sharing a space. And that's actually, I know this is like kind of away from what we're talking about, but it was really important for me to invite some playful life into my life right now. And we're being very good together, actually. We're negotiating a very healthy relationship where she's moved into my home and my job is to serve her, but frankly.
First of all, I wanted to say, because some people will be listening to a podcast, so just to uncover people that were thinking, Ramona, what is she? So we can say it's.
Oh, Ramona is a 4-month-old black short hair cat.
Okay, because otherwise they could think it's a whole other thing.
Right, sorry. And she's asleep right now and does not like to be held and carried, or I'd bring her over and show her to you, but she really doesn't like that, so I'm gonna just leave her alone. But more to the point, I am approaching writing a second book, and that's been hard to get to, actually, during this time. I think a lot of people are experiencing that, and somehow, but part of it is because I want it to be useful, and I haven't known how to open the door to that and start writing. But people might know Fritjof Capra, a physicist. Capra wrote the foreword for my first book, and I had a communication with him just a couple of weeks ago and wanted to bounce some things off him. And I think this book needs to be about theater for living during a time of ecological collapse. That the things are coming that, you know, we should be preparing for. And, you know, interestingly, COVID has really diverted that conversation, you know, for now anyway, but climate change is out there. The planet doesn't care about COVID. And there are things coming that are going to be very, very challenging for humanity and for all life on the planet. And how do we use artistic practice, coming back around again, to build bridges, not more walls? Because the health of humanity is going to depend on that. You know, I believe that one of the reasons things are polarizing actually is climate change in ways we don't understand. If we accept the fact that the earth is a living thing and it's in trauma, the poles are melting, ocean currents are changing, wind currents are changing, weather patterns are changing, you know, all kinds of things are going on. And we are, you know, at the same time, an inconsequential and unfortunately very consequential living organism collectively on this larger organism. Why wouldn't we also be in trauma in ways we don't understand? And throughout history, when human beings have been freaking out, what have they done? They've sought out strong leaders who are going to rescue them. And fascism is rising around the world. And I believe it's not the only reason why, right? But it's a contributing factor. And we're not thinking that way. And so theater for living during a time of ecological collapse, I don't think it's about having answers. I think it's about asking questions, trying to offer techniques, making observations, making the linkages between the theater work and the science. And although I'm not Indigenous, obviously, Indigenous communities have been very generous with me. And here's something I know, that science has come around full circle and met once again Indigenous knowledge. And that the understandings are packaged very differently, but they say the same thing, particularly through physics. And biology is embracing this, and all kinds of other scientific practices are embracing this, that the rocks and the fish and the animals and the trees and the humans are all brothers and sisters somehow, that everything is indeed interconnected, is emerging as knowledge on the planet. We are moving away from this mechanistic model that took hold through Western science and made its way through most of the world and has been terribly detrimental to the planet and to humanity and to all life on the planet. And so there is writing to do in that realm that I hope would be useful years from now. I mean, it takes 2 years to write a book. I hope that I can find the path to actually really start writing. One must do one's own work. Like nobody can do somebody else's work. And, in my trainings, I say this to people. I say, early on when I started doing this work, people would say to me that when I'm facilitating, they said, you kind of have a Portuguese accent when you're facilitating. and I had to really think about that because I was hearing Augusto. We loved each other. We worked together in many different parts of the world, and we loved each other. He changed my life. And I think what happened is I gave myself permission for maybe too long to channel him. Oh, what would Boal do right now? Before I had the confidence to just be me. And I kind of understand that. When people come into trainings for me, I hope this isn't my ego speaking, but I say to them, you have my permission to use me as a cop in your head, a friendly cop, for a while. But you're obliged to banish me. Promise me you're going to do that. Because you have to do your own work, not mine. And in the doing of that, you end up at the tip of your experience. And because of that, I think if you're working authentically in this work, you are a pioneer. I don't think you decide to be a pioneer. I don't think you set out to be a pioneer. I think if you're working authentically, you have no choice. And part of that is you'll do stuff, and go, ooh, that didn't work. And I'm very transparent with people. I've had this idea. I want to try something with you. Is that okay? Because I don't know if this is going to work or not. They go, yeah, okay. And we're in safe enough space. And if it falls apart, so that's also really interesting. I've said this often about this work is that the sign that something has died is that it stops evolving.
I wrote something about the theater of the oppressed and the theater of the oppressed tree that Augusto kept referring to. I never met him in person, but I saw many trees, many versions of trees.
Yes,
and
a forest of trees. Yes,
and actually, I wrote, and that was also my claim, that the tree, in order to grow, to be alive, it needs to keep growing. It must keep growing, and it needs other trees. It needs a forest. It needs a whole corridor of trees to
yeah.
So I feel that this tree, this living, it has to be growing and living. And
and if I might add to that, trees also eventually fall down and die and nurture the earth and give birth to new trees.
Yeah. That's through the mycelium. The mycelium.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Good. Yeah. Thank you so much. It's so beautiful. I look forward for our next conversation.
Yes, me too. This has been fun. Thank you, Uri.
Crediamo che l'immaginazione.
Building transformative communities for future.
Nosotros creemos que la imaginación es el derecho universal.
Podcast in ImaginAction.
In this present moment, there's a lot of suffering in the world, and it's extremely devastating. I find, and I can get into despair of, I want to work with a more specific social issue, but I'm not sure which one. There's a lot of problems, and where's my part in that? And I think part of finding my voice is also having compassion for the voices that say, no, you're not doing good enough, or you're not making enough difference, or who are you? There needs to be time for someone to find their way in this path, in a creative arts path.
If you like the podcast, like, share, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Support me in making the podcast on Ko-fi/ImaginAction. Subscribe to the podcast on Spotify, Google Podcast, and Apple Podcast. And stay tuned for the next episode.